So this is a challenging part. It's not physically difficult so much as getting it lined up properly. I'm just by myself, so I'll be using the jack to lift and raise the subframe assembly while I use the lift to lower the car down, and then trying to maneuver to get the 4 holes. There's pins, actually, bosses if you will, that are around the body, and then there's a recessed area in each of these mounts, and that fits up over that. Here we go. And there we go. I now have the rear subframe assembly attached to the body. Next step, reattaching the shock absorbers, the brake calipers, and then forward into the parking brake cable to the interior, drive shaft, exhaust, etc. And then I might actually have a working car again. So we have the rear subframe back in the car. I had one little glitch. The shock, one of the things I forgot was that this is a coilover shock, and the shock was pushing down too far. So once I got the subframe up, I couldn't get the shock in. So I actually dropped each side separately of the subframe, got the shock into position, ran the bolt, got it hand tight, then put up the subframe, did the same on the other side. Now that's all bolted down. I have the calipers in place. I have my ABS sensor now in place, and this is all attached. Done that on both sides. And the other piece I want to show you is the parking brake cable. If you can see this, let's move the camera up and get a better look. So I have the parking brake cables in position. I've threaded them into these holes, these tubes. And the next piece, before I get them to attach all the way, is I have to go into the car and thread them into the parking brake lever, and that's a whole process in itself. So we'll show that in the next video, but for now I've got the whole subframe in. This and the console is a whole separate, I want to call it a separate stage or a separate sequence, so we'll get that, but otherwise success and one greasy Curt. So now I have the parking brake cable attached to the parking brake lever inside the car. We're attached here, so we're all done underneath. Before I can put the drive shaft in, the next step is putting in a heat shield over the rear section here. Alright, I got a bit interrupted. My memory card got full as I was putting in the drive shaft, which I've already installed. And the drive shaft installation was actually pretty easy. It was just lifting up off the cart, inserting the CV joint into the flanged adapter or coupler at the rear, holding it in place. There's a slide. So there's a pin sticking out of the back of the transmission, so the drive shaft slips over that, getting that in place. Once that was positioned, so pushing this up, hand tightening the 2 nuts for the center bearing, and then I put my 3 Guibo bolts and nuts in place. There are 6 studs at the rear and the CV joint that extend from the CV joint, and then nuts in the back. I've got 2 nuts here holding the center bearing in place, and 3 bolts holding the drive shaft to the flex disc or Guibo disc at the front, and those have already been hand tightened and installed. My next step is putting in the 6 nuts on the back. And as you can see, I've got baggies, so I put all my comparable nuts and bolts together in bags so I can reassemble this thing. Since it's been a couple of weeks since I took it apart, it sure helps to have things categorized so I can find them easy. Now, we get to put in another heat shield. Now in the rear, this heat shield gets held in place by the bracket that's attached to the exhaust system here. So for now, we're just going to let it hang free. I might get a little clip or something just to hold it up to the drive shaft to keep it out of the way. But that takes care of the heat shield. Next, the exhaust system. And that's another challenge.